Hello, my name is Shane Whistler, your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And today in the studio we have with us Gail Temkin, who will tell us a story that involves herself and two dogs, to tell us a little bit about emotional literacy, how to read ourselves and even those around us. And so we will hear in the best way possible to communicate this idea, a story written by Gail.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Thank you for joining us today on Austin Faith Dialogue. As I said, you will hear a story written by Gail Temkin about two of her very special four-legged friends, learning about our emotions and how we relate to one another. Gail?
Thanks, Shane. This morning I'd like to dedicate this story to all the people in your life who love you no matter what. Vicissitudes is a very big word. Most people don't know what it means. I believe it is a very important word for everyone to know. So I encourage you to listen up and think with your heart. Vicissitudes is about life, your life. Every life has many twists and turns. There are happy days, sad days, law days, and exciting, adventuresome days. Life has many ups and downs and twists and turns. This is what the vicissitudes of life means, the river of your life. Can you remember when the weather was so cold, dark, and bleak? Or when it's so nice and warm and bright? Or in the summer when it's so frickin' hot and humid? Weather changes just like a life. There are pleasant days and unpleasant days, and this is normal. But in any life, there is a time when there are just too many cold, dark, and bleak days. Some living creatures just wither and die. Others can get very frustrated and act out with anger and violence. Others may glug, 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 shoot, maybe gobble, 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 isolate, or even meditate. It's true, isn't it? Life can be sometimes too difficult to bear. This morning, I'm here to share with you the true story of Girl Ann Wagger, a four-legged creature who had a tail that never wagged. She was so unhappy that all she could do was pace back and forth and ruff, 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 ruff. She ran from everyone and preferred to live under houses because her owners always said mean things to her, hit her, and gave her cross signals. They drove her crazy, and then they blamed her for her behavior. One day out in the open, just so casually, they said, "You know that good-for-nothing dog? Let's get rid of her this evening." A bystander, I think an angel, just said, "Stop. I'll find a new home for her." Well, the vicissitudes of life for this nameless 6-month-old girl dog immediately changed for the better. You see, miracles, the unexpected can happen. The new owners were terrific with her, but when they decided to have a baby and build a house, this attention-sucking dog just wasn't in the picture. That's when they asked me to take her. Call me Ms. Sucker. I'll never forget that first night because my head immediately goes into a gas. I mean, she was scared of a cockroach. She barked all the time. I thought, am I crazy to take on such a crazed creature? What am I going to do with her? Well, Mickey, my other dog, knew exactly what to do. He went over to her and he nuzzled her belly. He licked her face. He chewed on her jaw. He gnawed on her paws and invited her to play. And play they did. And I thought, well, of course, I'll follow Mickey's lead. I too became very affectionate, kind, caring, patient, and always respectful to Girl Dog. And I always encouraged her to overcome her fears. And not only that, I always told her the truth. Girl, I love you, honey. Come on, you're safe now. You can leave the yard with Mickey and me. Come on, it's okay. Well, it wasn't an overnight success. Not in a day, a week, a month, or a year. But day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year, Girl Dog became a very joyous and free spirit. All of Girl Dog's friends came together and said, Gail, Girl Dog needs a better name. I agreed, and I thought to myself out loud, many Texan boys and girls have these names that literate together like Sue Ellen, Billy Bob, Mark Tracy, etc. And I said, you know, how about Girl Ann Wagger? Girl stands for her gender and strength. Ann for her ability to make friends like former Governor Ann Richards. And Wagger for a tail that continually wags, that can give hope that a horrible life can turn into a happy one. Well, when Girl Dog heard this, she thumped the earth with each of her paws and let out the biggest woof in her mouth and this big grin, and we took it that she loved the name. Then so thoughtfully, she came over to me and started whispering in my ear. And she did, roof, 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 roof. I swear to you, this is what I think she said. Let's tell our story. I want everyone to know how you and Mickey helped me. You love me through thick and thin, no matter what. You never, ever messed with my head. I learned that love increases trust, it ignited my courage, and it relaxed my soul. You taught me how to love, and I love you both so much. I now know that love loves to love, and something is haywire when people aren't doing that for one another. So I want us to tell our story, and I think you should write a book. Well, Mickey and I just looked at Girl Ann and we wondered, when did she get so smart? And so I wrote a book, Girl Ann, an inspirational tale of love and courage. So whether the vicissitudes of life for you are on the upswing or on the downswing, take it out and remind yourself who you are and how to love. Because this is something that I have learned being with Girl Ann and Mickey, that most people, including myself, know how to spell love L-O-V-E. But until I had them truly, I didn't know how to really love. And love is bigger than a four-letter word. It's who we are and what we are, and we love you.
Thank you, Gail. And towards the end, I think our audience may get a clue if they've heard our friends in the background. We'll get a chance after this short break to meet Girl Ann Wagger and also Mickey and learn a little bit more about what this story means and different ways and different levels for children and adults. So please
Right.
stay with us for Austin Faith Dialogue. Hello, I'm Shane Whistler, your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And in a moment, you'll see up close and personal Girl Ann Wagger and her friend Mickey. And we're going to hear a little bit more about this concept of emotional literacy, which can be told through a story that entertains children but also reaches a deeper level, because we all have suffered in some way or another and have different ways of handling it, whether it's abuse, such as our dog Girl Ann has suffered, to bringing people out of their shell and being connect and to reconnect with one another. And Gail, thank you for sharing a story. And I know we have Girl Ann and Mickey will be
Yeah.
running around because
Come
we
here.
don't
Come
won't be able to control. And that's probably sometimes the mistake, trying to control one another,
Right, right.
especially with animals. But can you tell us what, for you, the heart of this story is when you tell it? Because you've told it for school children and other people. What is the central concept you want to communicate?
Well, it's not so much as the central concept as it is the feeling. Because most people, when they hear the story, fall into what it feels like to feel love. And everyone has suffered something or other, so they remember, and then they remember a good friend. So it brings up good memories and feelings of love.
Good. Well, you have founded something called the Coalition for Emotional Literacy. And if you could tell us just briefly how that came about and what work you have done.
It just came about. I can't even remember. It came about 6 years ago, and it's come a long way. I think a new phrase is emotional intelligence. But emotional literacy, for me, everyone wants our children to learn how to read, write, and spell and do arithmetic, right? But no one is paying that much attention on their emotional literacy. Okay, so you can't, and that's why in the beginning of the story is to think with your heart. And so I say that emotional literacy broadens intelligence to include the heart, because intelligence without heart can be very abusive or dysfunctional or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, this the story that our audience has heard is a core part of a whole curriculum about teaching children and teachers and parents how to respond to one another and how
Right.
to give some positive attention that can change lives. Because just one example, not the only, but children with, I know you've worked with either from the Gifted and Talented program and or children with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder.
Right.
How does this program contribute to dealing with children sometimes with special needs.
Fantastic. Okay. We okay.
We
That's how.
apologize
Well,
to the
I'll
dogs.
tell you. I'll tell you how it does, Mick, I'll tell you how that does it. When they're in the classroom
And actually
they
this-
behave and they do something like that, we put them in timeout.
Right, and this is actually part of, we'll use it
So
as a
whatever
demonstration.
happens, and I think they were eating one of the microphones, a little thing. But in any case, for a gifted in the program, there are two ways I work this program. One, it's called the Girl Ann program, and that's with the doggies and the cats. And the other one, it's the same program, but it's called Education in Motion. And then I don't have the dogs or the cats, and we just work with it. But basically, each of these programs melds academic subjects, emotional intelligence, and physical fitness in one classroom activity. So what that does is it keeps children, all children, active. With particularly ADD kids or hyperactive, I'm a medical massage therapist, so I'm licensed to touch people. So what would happen, I got permission from the parents and permission from the principal, and I would go in and I would work with the kids and I would teach them how to massage each other or rub each other's shoulders. And it would relax them. It would immeasurably relax them. And then they would be so receptive to learning. And then if they got hyper or anything, they could pet the dogs. And then they would see Girl, who's very hyper. She won't sit. She'll only sit if she wants to. But she'd cause problems because they would like her to sit. So they would get upset with her. So then they could understand how the teacher would get upset with them. Mm-hmm. But see, she'll relax on her own if you let her be.
Right, and we actually weren't joking or making excuses when they started acting up and barking. That's exactly what children and parents face with one another and teachers
Right.
in classrooms.
Right.
There is no sense of control.
Right.
And so giving some positive attention and then giving also space allows children to settle down. We often combat so many problems with medication, which has been
Right.
helpful, but may not always be necessary.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree very strongly with that. Now, it's not, let me make something really clear. That Girl was really, very hyperactive attention deficit. And the only way that she came around was through persistent, consistent discipline. I understand her personality. I couldn't absolutely control her, but she had to learn discipline. So, and it had to be repeated and repeated and repeated. And Mickey, you like eating the stuff off the floor. Come here, honey, come here. And so with him, he's different. He has a different doggy intelligence. He would, and we would talk with the kids about it, like he is off the charts in doggy intelligence. He knows how to sit, he knows how to do all that, and he wants to comply. She could care less, okay? But she's a critical thinker and problem solver. She'll just do things that are just off. She's into human intelligence kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So they're both very different, and the whole thing with a good teacher is to be able to discern what kind of intelligence is here and to hone in on it.
Right. So the teacher learns as the children learn.
Right.
When the dogs,
Right.
as you say, when the dogs frustrate them, they learn,
Right.
oh, I can be frustrating to my teacher, and brings a fuller view of the picture of how difficult it is for some children in rigid or structured environments.
And also, I want to reiterate that they also see Mick as a certain kind of intelligence, like he wants to comply, he wants to be good, he wants to please you. Girl wants you to please her. Mm-hmm. Okay, but she's fun. So they see these different personalities, and they see that in themselves, and that's what's really important.
Okay. Well, some of our viewers may be asking themselves, well, this program's called Austin Faith Dialogue. What in the world does this have to do with faith? Or could you describe how this project of emotional literacy has intersected your spiritual life?
Well, at first I thought it totally intersected my spiritual life. I had no idea what I was getting involved in when I had this creative urge to do an education program. And as I started working on it, I really got involved in love. I didn't have a sense of love like I do now until I started working with these programs. And sometimes in the story I talk about how we get involved in our ideas or our belief systems. Like Christianity is better than Judaism, or Judaism is better than Hinduism, or how all my beliefs are better. And to me, that's just a way of falling out of love. And it seems like all the true religions, really, or the spiritual systems, say to us, love and accept unconditionally. And that's what it's taught me. Not that I'm always perfect, but I strive for that.
What is the faith tradition that you practice and has helped
I
inform you?
I would say I'm more Buddhist, and Buddhist is more into equanimity. That's like what we try for.
Okay. Could you unpack that phrase out a little bit? Just
Okay,
equanimity,
all
how
right.
does that
Okay,
translate?
I'm not part of the lineage, let's say, of the Dalai Lama, but most people know about the Dalai Lama. And he said his religion is kindness. Okay, so, and in Buddhism, or in this kind of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, kindness is for the Chinese who overran them. It's just not for the people you love. It's for the everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's equanimity. And to... Are we going to put you in timeout?
That's exactly another part of the lesson.
Okay.
But they
don't have equanimity.
Right. Well, we do want to compliment you on a story that has probably had a profound impact on several children and their parents, and they can buy the book locally at a few of the specialized bookstores and learn a little bit more. Also today, we know that children and special people with special behaviors present challenges to themselves and to each other.
Right.
I know our four-legged friends have presented challenges to the staff that helped produce this show today, and they've done very well and been very patient.
By the way, this is Girl Ann Wagger. And if you notice that she likes being center stage. So she has totally overcome her shyness. And Mickey could care less. He's somewhere else. She knows she's on camera. Because she's been on camera, and when we do our book readings, like at Book People, she likes being in the front.
Right, and we all know people like that. Not only children are like that, to be front and center and desire attention. But what is your hope for the future of your work?
Well, the future for this is, obviously, I'd like for people to buy the book. And may I say where it's at?
It's you said Book People? And
Book People, Book Woman, and Toad Hall. Those are the three places it's in Austin. But in general about the program, what I want to do now is train teachers or train cooperative home study parents to do this program, because it's very, very interesting. When I did a market survey, what I found is that everyone likes kinesthetic education. I'm not talking about manipulatives, things you put in a kid's hand. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3. I mean, where kids are, or where adults are playing, you're doing the academic subject. And everyone likes to learn how this subject applies to me. Who am I? How can I use this? How is this going to benefit my life? And everyone, I think, really likes to learn if it's presented in a fun and enthusiastic way. So I'd like to train teachers how to do this, and, as I said, cooperative home study parents.
Mm-hmm. And the program you founded, Coalition for Emotional Literacy, is a nonprofit program that you've been inside schools.
Right.
That you would like to be able to train people to do that
in the school.
On a broader level than you've reached
right.
than just Austin, the few schools you visited in Austin.
Right.
Okay. We have, for people who want to call for more information about the program, they can call you and contact you. We have the number on the screen and invite people to learn more, because it's hard to communicate a topic like this and succinctly in such a short time. We are really thankful for, I guess, a chance to see creative ways to deal with difficult problems, because we're a society that wants the 1, 2, 3 rigid approach, and yours doesn't do that. It looks at the heart of the person you're talking to.
Yeah, and actually that has been the problem because people, schools and principals, I mean individuals have liked it, but they want it to be easy. And they don't want it to seemingly so cumbersome, like how can you do all of that in 1 hour? But you can if you know how to do it. And I don't believe that people just have to learn science as science. I mean, you can learn science and social studies and physical education all at the same time. But some people still like to segment everything, and I don't.
Mm-hmm. Do you have other stories that you tell as well, besides Girl Ann's story? And I guess
Yes.
in the book, it's in kind of in her voice, so to speak.
Yeah, it is in her voice. She tells her own story. And then there's the Mickey Raoul story about him. And then there's a story about me, how I was obedience trained by my computer. And then there's a story about our kitty, who is, and we call that the courage of innocence. And Mickey's story is the beauty of love.
Good.
So there are 4 stories.
And it sounds like the theme connecting these these stories is not to try to conquer things, but to learn.
Well,
give
I
and
would
take.
say, yeah, maybe conquer isn't to, yeah, it's not to conquer, but it's to make friends with yourself and everyone else, in a sense of allowing people to be who they are. Yeah.
So as you share these stories in the schools, what can you tell us that children, have you seen children's reactions, and also what have they told you about the experience and what they've learned?
Well, I have it on video, and it's, a picture says 1,000 words. To see their faces. On the Mickey Raoul story, I have the kids illustrating the story, and that's fabulous. They love it, and the kids love the music, they love the animals, and they love being not at their desks, so to speak. They love moving around, they love learning in action, and they love learning about themselves. So when I tell the story, they can all relate. Like Mickey, the story of Mickey is he all of a sudden got into a lot of physical problems. Like Mickey was alpha dog, or he was big dog, and girl was, she was the wounded one. Now she's the one who's really, and they switch off. They're very, I can't say omega dog, alpha dog, stuff like that. They're pretty cool with one another. But he had lots of problems, so the vicissitudes of life changed for Mickey. And that happens for children too. And then how did we handle that? What happened there? And so the kids cry, and then they tell their stories. Oh. And that's the bonding that happens. And all of a sudden they tell their life stories in the classroom. And such
Good.
Trust. And people, it's the same thing for adults, right?
That's great. That's a powerful
Well, hello,
story.
you decided to settle down?
We're glad you brought yourself and your friends, and we hope you can ask and learn more about emotional literacy. Thank you for joining us in Austin Faith Dialogue. Peace be with you.